Okay, so now we are going to start. Welcome back for attendees from the first session, and welcome for attendees who just attending this second session on career development after your PhD. The focus will be career development after your PhD or after your postdoc, depending on your situation. And one of the challenges you may be facing after your PhD is maybe to define your next step. Basically where and how you can go. So that's why we organize this session with a stronger focus on career development outside of academia for very simple reasons. So basically in France, you have 4.5% chances to get hired as a permanent researcher in a research institute. And only 4.2% to get a position as a professor in Germany. So you see, basically you have more chances to get a position, permanent positions outside of academia. So that's why we put the focus on this non-academic career development. So that's why we are welcoming today only men. We had a female speaker who canceled her participation because she was sick. So I'm sorry for that, but we will have two parts in the session. The first part will be an introduction by Airbus explaining career development within the organization. There will be a first part for your questions, so do not hesitate during the session to type your question in the Q&A tab you can find at the bottom of your screen. And then we will move to the second part of the session with the share of experiences of PhD holders, explaining what kind of jobs they have and how they landed to where they stand at the moment. And of course, at the end, a question answer time as always. Of course, you will be invited to contact speakers if you want to get more information after the session, so do not hesitate to connect with them later on. So now I'm going to give the floor to Airbus. So we have the pleasure to have two speakers, Pierre Passot and Christophe Vernaleken. So I'm giving you the floor so you can share your screen whenever you want.
Hello everybody, Pierre Passot speaking. So I will start by sharing my my screen to be sure that you see it. Is it okay?
We can see it, yeah.
Okay, so hello, my name is Pierre Passot. I am in charge for non-industrial partnership France in Airbus in the research and technology department. I belong to R&T department, and as well I am in charge for thesis Drumbeat, and this is the reason for why I am here today. Christophe and me will present you today the position of a large company regarding thesis topic. So I will let Christophe present himself, and after I will continue.
Yes, my name is Christophe Vernaleken. I'm expert human factors engineering for Airbus Defence and Space in Meiningen, Germany. And my daily work is on cockpit ergonomics for the fixed-wing products that we have in our portfolio. And I represent the expert career path. I did my PhD at Darmstadt University of Technology in aerospace engineering. And my original degree is in physics from the University of Würzburg.
Okay, thank you, Christophe. So I will do this presentation in three parts. First, I will go very quickly in order to provide you an overview about key figures of Airbus to make you aware about this perimeter. Secondly, I will have a few words as well on disciplines on which you can apply when you want to perform a thesis in Airbus. So these two parts will be quite quick, and after I will give you the floor to Christophe, who will develop expert career path. Expert career path is, I would say, is far from being the only discipline to join Airbus after a thesis, but at least it is the most probable and logical one. So it has to be understood. I will come back on this later. So first slide, as I said, I will go very quickly. Working on a daily basis, it's quite foggy when you are to think about what are the product and the deliverable of Airbus. It's quite large, and I would say that this sentence are really summarizing the perimeter. We are designing, manufacturing, and delivering our space product, and we are providing as well solutions. in terms of structure, I would say three business units. The first one is a commercial aircraft manufacturer. It's the largest one. Nevertheless, the products are as well very complex and very spread through these three business units. We have as well defense and space and helicopter division. Going through the size, I would say large focus on Europe. Nevertheless, we are close to our customers, which means that in fact there is no area where we are not really present. Going through commercial aircraft first. It is interesting to know what are the families which are designed, built, sold. First one, it's to understand that there is quite a high number of products. We deliver today nearly 2 aircraft per day. It has to be known as well. And what is important to understand is that each of these aircraft families are corresponding to one customer need. So there is behind this product line, there is a lot of study of marketing and all this structure is working well. Regarding the helicopter family, it's quite the same approach. We have 3 families. The first one is civil range. I will not go through in the detail. It's quite a high number of products. We have the military range, and as well we have technology demonstrator. This third part is more and more important as customers' needs are getting more and more, I would say, different regarding the density of population and the needs which are popping up every day. The last division is Airbus Defense and Space, spread into 4 families. We have military aircraft, space system, connected intelligence, and drones. So as well, it is a very large range. And when we are speaking about innovation, for example, you can imagine all the topics which are identified in this business unit as well. So coming back to thesis, I just create this slide in order to open, I would say, the discussion regarding future doctorant. Where can I apply my specialty in Airbus if I want to do a thesis? So I would answer very simply, wherever there is innovation, we can recruit you. It's really clear. We associate generally thesis to technical topics, and it is sure that today, me belonging to research and technology, I can tell you that there is a very large range of technological topic for innovation. Particularly, I would say we are speaking about autonomy of flight, visionic, connectivity. We have as well all the flight system. There is a lot of area, composite materials, and so on. But as well, more and more, we have soft skill popping up, human resources, procurement, marketing, sales. There is a lot of area popping up in soft skill because our habits are changing, and it is very important to perform as well innovation in this area. So I would say just an overview, but the answer is it's very large. So everybody can perform innovation in Airbus and apply for a thesis in this discipline. So now, what about after? Because in fact, there is always a question which is asked to me. I am a doctorant. Where can I apply after in Airbus? So before giving the hand to Christophe, I would just say one thing. You are a doctor in composite material, for example, and you want to join Airbus. So as I said at the beginning, it's quite obvious, I would say, to say my career path will probably become I will become an expert. Yes, for sure. I would say it's the royal area in order to go in Airbus. Nevertheless, you have to know that joining Airbus with a very high level for one discipline will allow you to join a lot of job. For example, if you mix composite knowledge with project management, you will become probably as well a very good project management into structure of aircraft. If you want to become a manager, it's as well very simple and easy, because you have to know perfectly one domain and as well to be able to, you will be able as well to manage a team. So I give the hand to Christophe now, who will develop the expert career path. It's you, Christophe, to speak.
Thank you, Pierre. Yeah, Pierre and I thought that we would like to present you this expert career path because with your PhD thesis, you become subject matter experts in a very narrow scientific field, the subject of your thesis, and you develop the necessary passion for detail and for technology, and also the patience and perseverance that it needs to build the expert knowledge that you require. And you see we have a wide range of products, from actual rocket science via helicopters to aircraft. And if you go to the next slide, Pierre, then yeah, you see what the expert career path is. Essentially, the expert career path is developed inside Airbus to attract, to retain, and to develop expertise, because technical expertise is a very crucial competitive factor for an aerospace and defense company at world-class level as Airbus. And therefore, people have decided inside Airbus to give this really a formal, make this really a formal career path option for people who want to join Airbus. Next, please. So, because Airbus, to retain and to expand its role as a world-class company, it needs to manage, develop, and make one expert community to serve Airbus ambitions with really world-class technical experience. Next. So what does an expert typically do internally? So of course, we provide our specific subject matter technical experience on specific technical questions and issues, but we might also take the initiative to advise and influence our management and our engineering colleagues regarding the improvement of specific operational solutions. As for myself, I do a lot of work for research and technology projects internally. So I review such projects, I set such projects up, and I also manage in my daily work these kind of projects. And another role that you have is that you capture, spread, and transfer knowledge internally. As an example, I do brief training sessions for neighboring centers of competence inside Airbus of 45 minutes just to create awareness of what human factors engineering is and how to apply it and what's important about it or not. And I also lecture our prospective aircraft architects, which are the generalists who know a little bit about everything about aircraft, whereas the experts, they really know almost everything about a very narrow field in very narrow technological domain and area. We also network among us experts, so we connect to other human factors experts inside helicopters, commercial aircraft. We talk to experts at space systems, and we network and exchange our opinions, our knowledge, and seek out the advice of people who are in related technical disciplines or technical disciplines that have a big impact on our own field of expertise. And last but not least, experts also advise, draft, and review patent applications to ensure that our intellectual property at Airbus is managed appropriately. Next, Pierre. So we also have external roles as experts. So first of all, we represent Airbus at conferences and universities. So I've attended many conferences, scientific conferences for Airbus. And as another example, this semester, I'm teaching a lecture on human factors in aviation at TU München for the first time. So it's a 12-week course on human factors in aviation. And this is also because of my expert role at Airbus that got that started. We also publish, so mostly scientific papers, but also technical articles, technical guidelines. We have to watch out for all new technologies that are emerging on the market and that might influence our area of expertise. And we need to see, okay, is it relevant? Is it not relevant? We need to assess it and then decide on what the next steps inside Airbus might be. And last but not least, expert also represent Airbus interests at the various aerospace standardization bodies, such as RTCA, ARINC, ICAO, and also in front of the authorities, the airworthiness authorities. So experts are typically part of the panels that present our work to EASA and FAA. Next. So what's in it for you? So first of all, as I said, as Pierre and I pointed out, it's really a formal career path inside Airbus. It's not just that some colleagues or manage to say, okay, yeah, well, this is the expert, but it's really a formal recognition that you get of your extraordinary competence throughout the company and beyond. You're part of an active expert community, so we exchange, as I mentioned, we do have very specific expert events where we exchange on subjects. And of course, since it's a career path, you also get the opportunity to develop yourself and to become more and to really build a career. So it doesn't stop at your expert nomination. Next. So what should an expert have in terms of values? Yeah, first of all, you have to have the passion for technology, for technological details, and you should be eager to learn every day and to expand your knowledge. And strive for excellence, strive for world-class technological solutions. But also you need to have a high degree of humility, because it's essentially not about you, because the company's interests are first. You are there to guide, to consult, and you have to speak up whenever you see a risk for the company and share your knowledge with others. So it's not that you say, okay, I'm the expert and I keep all the knowledge to myself. No, you have to share, you have to spread, and you have to influence others. And of course, to do that, you have to have a vision where you want to develop your field of experience. So what's the direction? What are the focal points? What are the next steps? And to achieve that, you have to collaborate a lot with other experts, but also any other colleague inside Airbus, engineering, marketing, whatever you name it. Next. And essentially, experts are technical leaders inside Airbus. So we have to have a business impact by making decisions, technical decisions, by delivering, by being creative, by simplifying things that might be too complicated. And to achieve that, we have to impact people. So we have to give them energy, we have to build teams, and we have to act, of course, with integrity, take ownership, and also, as I mentioned before, learn continuously. So it's not that you become an expert and that's the end of the story. No, you have to continuously increase your knowledge and, of course, make sure that you keep up to speed with the technological developments in your field of expertise. Next. So these are some of the most important traits that you need to have. First of all, it's the technical competence and knowledge and the experience that goes along with it. But also you need a high degree of autonomy for two reasons. First of all, you need a lot of autonomy because you need to intrinsically motivate yourself to expand your knowledge and to set some focal points, to set some cornerstones of your work. But also because you are in a consulting role, you also need to have the autonomy to speak up whenever you see a risk. So you might tell projects and managers things that they might not want to hear and that they might not have anticipated. And you speak up, okay, there's a risk and we need to do something about it. And to do that, you need a high level of integrity and autonomy. Of course, it goes without saying that you need an innovative attitude and that you also need to think beyond your own technical expertise. So you have to think in multidisciplinary aspects, and of course disseminate your knowledge and influence people about your subject. Next. So to say a bit more about the formal expert career path, so we have essentially 3 levels in the expert career path at Airbus today. So the expert, that's the entry level. It corresponds to a team manager. and it typically is the expert level required at a center of competence at a certain business unit. The senior expert corresponds more or less to the senior manager, and there you have expertise in multiple disciplines, and you get recognition at the division level. So for example, at Airbus Defence and Space level or at Airbus Commercial level. But you also get visibility beyond that, so cross-divisional. And currently the highest position corresponding to management level, I think, of vice president level. You are the executive experts. We have only very few of these inside Airbus. And there you have a very broad technical experience across the aerospace industry. And there you really have group-wide visibility of your activities and also group-wide responsibilities. Next. And of course, to get there, so to develop yourself to become an expert and beyond that to one of the higher expert levels, Airbus provides you a lot of opportunities to develop your subject matter expertise, but also your soft skills, because in order to really be a trusted advisor on your subject matter expertise, you also need a certain degree of soft skills. Of course, yeah, let's be frank about that. Some people who are, let's say, scientists, they might not feel so cozy about speaking to larger audiences. And for that, we have, at the bottom, you see that we have specific training programs to support and train experts to be influencers. And I've been to one of these as well. It's very interesting and very nice. Because they brought in a couple of British actors who starred on the Versailles TV series that you might or might not know. And they then played difficult characters in negotiation role plays and helped us really to improve our communication and negotiation skills. And I think that's very important also if you want to be the trusted advisor and technical influencer as an expert that you should be as part of the world-class expert community inside Airbus. And that's all from my side. Yeah, Pierre, do you want to add anything to that? You're mute.
No, it's fine for me. You provide a very complete view of this part.
So we are of course open to any questions that you might have.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we can stop the screen sharing, right?
Okay.
Okay. Then Lisa, if you can maybe ask our speaker.
Yes, so we got some questions. So the first one is, does Airbus offer any industrial PhD opportunities? So just like before before the job offer, is there like any possibility of having financing a PhD with Airbus? And we have a second question that we can already ask is there any encouragement and support for applications from researchers at risk and with, for example, refugee background and a diversity and inclusion policy within the recruitment of postdoctoral person?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure to have really understood the question. Sorry. Can you repeat it, because it was a...
Okay. So the first question was, does Airbus offer any industrial PhD opportunities?
Okay.
And the second question was on the diversity policy, and is there any program for people with like a refugee background that have a PhD to have like inclusions within a program at Airbus?
Okay, so in order to answer the first question, of course there is some proposal for sure. I assume that in fact during the first session, it was the session just before, it was mentioned the way to provide a position. In Airbus, it is quite simple. It is the Airbus portal, and if you want to be recruited, you need to first to check on and to apply on the position which are identified on this Airbus portal. After, you have the possibility to provide your CV on this portal. So please use provide completely your position on this portal, and as well you can provide some keywords in order to alert more easily the recruiters when they want to search for a profile. So it is the two official way. After, for sure, there is some connection during a training, during not training, during when you are in contact with people of Airbus during your school, and it can be as well an opportunity to initiate this journey. This is for the first question. Maybe Christophe, you want to add something?
No, not much. I think there, as Pierre said, you apply online. We advertise specifically PhD positions on our Airbus website, so you can specifically look for PhD thesis positions. Of course, you can also get in touch with Airbus via your university if there's an existing cooperation, and then sometimes there's an opportunity that evolves from that. We can only encourage you to do that, because you have really the resources of all Airbus at your fingertips. So we have Flight Lab, we have that could provide you with the possibility to flight test the solutions that you develop. What I've seen from the PhD students that we had in our department is really that you benefit from the expertise of a lot of colleagues that have decades of experience in the subject, and you really heavily supported in your thesis work if you do it inside Airbus. So compared to, let's say, the university environment that I've also seen, I think there's more team spirit if you do the PhD thesis at Airbus or the company, because the whole team will support you and make sure that you succeed.
Yeah, I would add as well something. There is a possibility as well to be connected with Airbus through an external laboratory, because in fact, through this way, there is already strong connection between Airbus and labs. And then after, it is as well an opportunity to initiate a particular topic, which will be very interesting for Airbus and the labs. Regarding the second question, I would say it is not connected to thesis cursus. The policy, I would say the policy, there is a dedicated department in Airbus dealing with all this policy, but it is not connected directly with thesis topic.
Okay, thank you. We have a questions regarding social sciences, and is there also any possibilities at Airbus for non-engineers or social science doctorants to find like an expert opportunities as well?
So this is what I call soft skill. In my presentation, of course, and there is more and more soft skill topics which are developed through innovation axis. So this is getting more and more important, and the reason is that today social evolution is moving faster and faster. There is very up-to-date topics which need innovation, and where we need innovation. And I think particularly to some topics like HR, where there is today some topics being developed in this way.
So we also have questions concerning the current context. So regarding the COVID-19 crisis and the fact that like the whole industrial world is touched by the crisis, is it affecting the recruitment process of, for example, experts at Airbus as well?
Okay, it's a good question. So the answer is yes, there is an impact today, but not in all the business units. For sure, you saw that in my very quick presentation of Airbus, we have 130, more than 130,000 people who need to get a salary at the end of the month. So there is a temporary actions in order to the situation is recovered. So we stopped the creation of new thesis temporarily, but I would say it is today a question of months, and just to tell you that we didn't stop the process anyway. So this is the position of Airbus commercial. In Airbus helicopter, there was no stop into this processus. So this means that today there is still some thesis creation nowadays and in the future months regarding thesis creation. Yes. So the answer is yes, impact, but it's very short term. And today, I believe that in very soon we can have some new thesis.
Thank you very much. And I think we will finish with two last questions. So the first one is how much the topic of the PhD is important in the recruitment. So is there like, are you searching more for PhD or certain topics are like more important? And the second question is it also possible for older postdoc or people who have worked for a certain time in academia to come after to Airbus? Is there also like an interest for recruiting this kind of people?
So I will let the second question to Christophe. Maybe he can answer better than me. So I have an answer, but I think he is better placed than me in order to answer. Regarding the first one, I would say that there is no important and not important topic regarding thesis. It's very clear. Today, what is driving the thesis topic is Airbus vision, Airbus roadmap, where we do want to be in 5 or 10 years. So this is what we manage in research and technology department. So we are looking at in a far way, and from this perspective, we prioritize the topics which are contributing to this innovation in departments. So I would say there is no important or not important. If it is fitting to our vision, it's all these topics are important.
Yeah, and regarding the second question, the question of whether postdocs and people who have spent more years in research are also welcome at Airbus, then the answer is clearly yes, because as Pierre said, when there's the interest in certain skills and certain profile, and also especially in emerging technologies, then of course any experience that you've gained during your academic career as a postdoc or even beyond is highly relevant and highly appreciated at Airbus. So there's no reason why you shouldn't apply after, let's say, 5 years of postdoc. So we don't only have entry for young professionals and graduates, but we also have entry options for seasoned professionals and higher levels. So apply. It's a great company and apply.
Thank you very much for the first questions. We need to stop at the moment the first question and answer time so we can hear the other speakers, of course. So do not hesitate if you have additional questions for Airbus. You will have time also after the second part of the session to ask. And if we don't have the time to answer all the questions, as already mentioned, we are going to forward your questions to the speakers and then they will answer them by email, and then we will forward you their answers. So do not worry, you will get the answers you need. And then thank you very much, Pierre and Christophe, for your talk. And then we are going to move to the second part of the session, which will be more focused on sharing experience as a PhD. The first part with Airbus was focusing also on career in research, in technology. And in the second part, we are going to show you that actually with a PhD, you can do more than just research engineer or working in research. With 3 testimonials of researchers, we have the pleasure to welcome Tobias, Cyriac, and Stefan. So Tobias, you will be the first one to present your journey, I would say, and then we will move to Cyriac and Stefan with kind of discussion all together. So Tobias, if you want, the floor is yours.
I hope that you can hear me well. Hello, everyone. And I try to share my screen so that I can show you the presentation. I hope it works.
We can see your slides.
Perfect. So for me, I don't talk that much about the company I'm working for now, because for me, the thing I struggled most with was really the choice of what I want to do in my professional life. I'm a senior editor working at Nature, so Nature is a scientific journal. So I'm still very close to academia, but I work for a private company. So maybe you can see it as a compromise between academia and industry. And only very briefly, I want to talk about Nature. So as I said, we are a scientific publisher. And my job is, as a manuscript editor, to filter out the most important advances in science. So we get the manuscript sent to us by the researchers, and I try to select only the most significant advances. And of course, compared to research, what is a little more important working for Nature is also the communication of science. So it's not only about having good results, but also doing your part in communicating these results. And just to give you a brief impression, like what my daily job looks like. So my main task is really handling submitted manuscripts. So you as a researcher submit your manuscripts to us, and then I read them very thoroughly and select the ones which I think are suited for our journal. And it's not only an office job, we still go to academic conferences. I mean, not now at the moment, but normally we do. We do lab visits, so we're still in touch with the academic world, which is important because it's nice to get out of the office. And you can also create content. So it's not only about reading manuscripts, but you can also write like research highlights or some short articles, which will be published then in our journal. So we can also be creative. Okay, so this is all about the company working for Nature. If you have more questions about it, please ask later. But I want to focus more on the career choice, because this was the aspect which I struggled the most with. For me, it was not at all clear what I want to do after my PhD or postdoc. And you can really see it as a research project, because there are many factors which can be important in making this choice. And maybe you already heard some of this earlier in the first session. So there's a long list, and you can decide for yourself how much you want to go into detail. How fundamental do you want to do this research project? There are questions which are very much related to yourself. So it's not only about picking the company, but also really about knowing who you are, because only then you can find a company which is suited for you, and only then you can make sure that you will find a job which you will be engaged in and satisfied with. And yeah, I don't want to go through this list. I will talk about some aspects later, giving myself as an example. But yeah, just the questions are related to picking a job. Who am I? What do I want? And then, of course, also the external factors, like the company I want to work with. Does the company represent my values? Or are the values not so important? For me, it's more about having a good salary and 35 hours a week, which is also fine. That's other things you need to think about as well. And you have different approaches to tackle this research project. Yeah, I just came up with these 3 options, but it's not an exhaustive list. So the first option is I always knew what I wanted in life. I guess if that's the case, you wouldn't participate in this workshop. This was definitely not the case for me. Then you can have like a pragmatic approach, which I call the path of minimal resistance. It's like, okay, I don't know, you did a PhD, let's say in optical spectroscopy, and then you find a company selling optical spectrometers. This is like an obvious choice, but you're not obliged to do this. I mean, you can really start to question everything, which I did a little bit. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but yeah, I mean, you're free to think out of the box, and maybe you did some research and now you want to do something else. That's really up to you. Okay, but now I want to stop to talk in this abstract way, but really talk more about myself. So before I picked my job, I really asked myself this very basic question: who am I, and what do I want? Because this is important to get to know, to have an idea what job fits to you. And yeah, just like 3 factors which I think are important: your passions, your experiences, and your personality. And I would like to start with the personality. And there are many different ways in psychology how you can categorize personalities. And you shouldn't see this as something fixed. I mean, our personalities change during our life, but it gives you an impression of what job might suit your personality. So I picked this big 5 personality traits, and you can just type it in Google and read the Wikipedia article if you want more details. But it picks out 5 essential traits that we have, and always compares like the 2 opposites of these traits. So for example, I am someone very introvert, which fits really well with my job because it's mainly an office job. I have to read a lot, make decisions for myself, and that fits well. I'm not a salesperson. I'm more an introvert type. That doesn't mean that I cannot go to conferences and approach people, but I feel very comfortable in this job of reading manuscripts. And then I'm also someone very open and curious, and that fits fantastically with this job because I read a lot of fascinating research, not only in a specialized area, but really over a broad range of physics. So I studied physics, it's still related to physics, but much, much broader than any research project in a lab. So yeah, I encourage you to also think of who you are personality-wise to get an idea what job you might like. And now I want to talk a little bit about my passions. And I picked again 3 constants in my life to which I always can go back to because I know I enjoy them no matter what. And these 3 are nature, knowledge, and sports. And physics is right at the intersection of knowledge and nature. And personally, I think it's important to do a job about which you are passionate. And for me, I mean, I'm passionate about knowledge, and working for a scientific publisher is fantastic to do that because I can read a lot. I learn so much about different scientific fields. And I also can interact with our scientific journalists. So I learn also about communicating science and not only doing research about it. And yeah, I mean, for me, I work at a journal called Nature, and one of my passions is nature, which is also quite a funny coincidence. And then also, yeah, of course, you think about your CV, but not only really about the points in a list, but really about your experiences that change a little bit how you see life or how you see yourself. So for myself, I was born in a little village in Bavaria, in Germany. And yeah, happy childhood, I guess. You get these kind of rather close community. And what really changed my perception a little bit of the world is when I moved abroad to California to do a research internship there. Okay, because then I really got curious about different cultures, and I also noticed that I love research, so I continued. Oh, it was then that I decided to continue with a PhD. I had a really productive PhD in the Paris area. I enjoyed research very much, and I thought, yeah, I will continue research. And then, okay, the postdoc was a little bit the opposite experience. The research didn't go well at all. I was quite frustrated in the lab, nothing worked. And then I was at a crossroads. Should I choose another postdoc, trying to revive my academic career, or should I do something different? And then, yeah, as you saw, I thought a lot about it, maybe a little bit too much, but in the end, I was very happy to find this job at Nature. Because as I said, it's really a little bit a compromise between academia and industry. So it's a private company, but I mean, I go to academic conferences and I read scientific papers, a lot of them. And maybe, I mean, if you're interested in the job as an editor, yeah, you can just go to the Springer Nature webpage and look for job opportunities. And the process for myself was rather standard. So I looked for job ads, applied to them. I applied to several of them. The first interview that I got with the Springer Nature, I actually didn't get the job. It was for another journal, and I didn't know what to expect. But in the end, this interview helped me to get the job at Nature, because then I knew, okay, what to expect, how the interview is going to happen. And then I had prepared myself really well, had all the answers ready. And yeah, in the end, I was very happy to get this job, because if you're a curious person, it's a very good place to be. And I think with that, I'm almost done with my 12 minutes, so I think I should stop here. And yeah, don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm happy to answer, or you can also contact me by email, as you prefer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tobias, for your presentation. So the questions will be asked after all the speakers have spoken. So you just have to wait a little bit before answering the question, but thank you very much for your nice insights regarding your professional journey. It was nice to see how you developed to this position as an editor. And then we are moving to another kind of position for which a PhD can be an asset, policy officer. So the floor is now to Cyriac. So you don't have a presentation, so that's nice. So I'm going to ask you some questions and you are just going to answer them. And of course, do not hesitate to add some information you may think of interest for our attendees. So my first question will be, of course, who you are. So can you tell us more about your background from your studies to where you stand now?
Yes, of course. So my name is Cyriac Messuet. I'm French and German. I come from Strasbourg in Alsace, which is nice because it's right on the border. So you can live your two cultures if you're French and German. And that was, of course, a predisposition for me to be interested both in France and Germany, also career-wise. So concerning my career path, my studies, I started in a quite classical fashion in French by doing a French engineering school, the French École Polytechnique. I did my specialization at ETH Zurich in Switzerland with a master's in chemistry. And then, because I was quite interested in chemistry and I saw a lot of connections with the energy transition and how chemistry plays a big role there, especially in the aftermath of the first developments of energy transition, the point where basically renewable energies and energy efficiency are not enough anymore. And it's a lot about energy storage, the use of hydrogen, developing alternative fuels for cars, for instance. I saw that and I got interested to go further in chemistry, to actually do some real research in the lab for more than just 2 or 3 months. And that's how I decided to do a PhD in chemistry in the field of inorganic chemistry, more precisely around hydrogen production from renewable energy sources here in Berlin, in Germany, at the Max Planck Society, the Fritz Haber Institute of the Max Planck Society. If you're into chemistry, you might have heard about it, or Fritz Haber, it's the Nobel Prize. So it's a quite famous institute in a certain very defined field. So I got very lucky there. The conditions of research in Germany are quite good. And I was also offered the opportunity to stay in academia, but in the end, I made a 180 degrees turn, or well, I'm still working in a field related to hydrogen, but now I'm working, as I said, at the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy here in Berlin. And I'm quite lucky to be still in my field because I'm participating in the redaction of the German hydrogen strategy that was published a couple of days ago, actually on the 10th of June, so it's almost a month now. And yeah, in general, I'm dealing a lot with the topic of hydrogen, and I'm advising the German government on those topics.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. So the question is now, can you tell us what you do exactly, what it is exactly to be in your shoes every day, or maybe in a month, like, to explain what your job is about?
Well, you could define my job quite in a classical fashion as a so-called policy officer. So I'm working in a bureau at the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, dealing mostly with hydrogen, synthetic fuels, power-to-X technologies. So it's a very broad scale. Actually, we have to answer questions from Parliament about what the German government is doing right now. So this is more classical governmental work, but I'm also using my expertise, for instance, when it came to working on the German hydrogen strategy, where the government is basically trying to line out a roadmap about how hydrogen is going to play a role for the German energy transition, and what the German government is actually going to do to support German companies or German research institutions when they want to either use hydrogen technologies or do research on it. So it's basically a lot of coordination around this topic, because there's also loads of other ministries who are involved in this. There's the Ministry of Research that might be most interesting for PhD researchers. So basically, as a PhD, you're very lucky, of course, if you end up in exactly the fields where you did your PhD, as I was lucky. But on the other hand side, it's also just quite useful to have a PhD. You don't have to necessarily be working in the field where you did your PhD, but I have several colleagues at the Ministry of Economy that are mathematicians, for instance, or physicians who are not working necessarily in the field where they did a PhD or even a postdoc in, but still this scientific way of thinking, this scientific expertise is helping a lot, especially in technical areas like the energy transition. It's a lot about numbers. It's a lot about analyzing offers that the government might get from companies, from foreign companies, from investors, about what might be the new hot topic or whatever. So you're not necessarily going to be writing expertises, but at least to give first impression, to be able to select, to differentiate between what topic might be important, which one might be a bit less important. Having done a PhD, having been really trained in analyzing scientific information, writing a paper, analyzing sources, all this is going to be extremely useful for you if you work in such a technical field as the energy transition. And there is many other fields like this. I mean, in general, the work at the Ministry of Economy is often related to what companies do. Artificial intelligence is another example where a PhD might be quite useful. So yes.
And was your PhD a requirement for this position, or was it just a plus for your application? And can you tell us about the recruitment process at the ministry? How did you get the position from your application to the signature of your contract?
Well, both in France and in Germany, the ministries are increasingly looking for scientists. In France, you can see that at the ENA, the French high school for higher positions in administration, they're regularly now actually offering places for scientists. In German, you can see this. Every ministry basically is making regular calls for applications. It used to be especially lawyers and economists, and now increasingly both in the Ministry of Environment or Economy or other fields, anything that's related, especially to the energy transition, they're increasingly looking for scientists. Because basically there you need the scientific expertise close at hand, or at least people, as I said, who can analyze, differentiate in the way a scientist is trained to. Engineers also are equally important. Yes, and so basically I just answered a call for applications. I mean, I knew that the ministry was looking, so I just waited for the next call for applications. I got taken, and quite immediately I was placed in the field that was closest to my area of expertise, where I could basically make the most valuable contribution. You froze, Bernice. Okay, so maybe I just keep talking. Okay. So maybe still about the recruitment process. Of course, working at a ministry is not necessarily what you have been trained for. I mean, I came from École Polytechnique, so
regarding this career plan.
Yes, Berenice, sorry, you froze, so I tried to improvise a bit, but go ahead.
So my question was, sorry, some technical problem with my computer. My question was it your dream job to become a policy officer? How did you came to the idea of becoming a policy officer? Was it really the dream, the job of your dream, or was it just chance, or was it by exploring a little bit the job market? Can you tell us more about this development?
Well, I must say I'm quite happy where I am. It's a bit tiring sometimes, but I got very lucky because I'm basically exactly in the position where I wanted to be. At some point during my PhD studies, I realized that being really into one very specific field wasn't enough for me. It was really cool, but on the other hand side, I was interested also in the broader picture of the energy transition. And basically, at the position where I am, I can take this little bit view from a bit more far away. Basically, think more about the conditions that are needed to put into place policies to enable hydrogen, for instance, to play a role in the energy transition and not just work on one small, very dedicated part. It's also really fun. I really enjoyed it during my PhD to be able to work on a really small piece of the puzzle and to really get an expert in that, and also during my postdoc. But now actually for me it was important to be able to take a little bit more this broader view of how everything interacts and how the interplay of things is going to work and what needs to be done basically for hydrogen to be not just in the lab, but to be out there in the fuel cell cars, decarbonizing the steel industry and stuff like that. And also I'm discovering a lot of new things. I mean, a year ago, I wasn't really aware of all the problems that the steel industry might have with carbon neutrality in 2050. Now I know I actually learned a lot about what kind of contribution hydrogen can make for the steel industry for achieving climate goals. So yeah, I'm learning a lot and it's really fun. And as a scientist, I have the feeling that I'm quite valuable there.
It's nice to hear. And maybe just a final question before giving the floor to Stéphane. Because we have in front of us attendees doing a PhD or about to finish or doing a postdoc, for instance. What kind of advice or information could you give them in order to help them define what they want? Because we know that it's not so easy to really know what we really want to do, and especially after a PhD or postdoc. What kind of advice can you give them?
Don't let yourself be put under pressure. Relax, try to do what you like. Honestly, that's my best advice, because especially in France, we hear a lot like, don't be late, you don't have much time, il faut se dépêcher, il faut pas perdre de temps, don't lose time. And this is all wrong. Honestly, I wasted a lot of time. I did 1 year abroad where I was just traveling. After my PhD, I did a postdoc knowing that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but basically I always kept in mind this goal that I wanted to take this broader view, this broader picture, and I actively did things to get there. And that was in the end the right choice. I mean, there were 2 years where it wasn't really clear. I mean, I refused this position in academia that I was offered to lead a research group. That would have been the easiest choice, the most convenient one. But in the end, I'm really happy that I didn't do that, and that I kept looking for the thing that made me happy. So yeah, don't let yourself be put under pressure. You don't have to find the actual real fitting job just right after your PhD, or even have it 3 months ahead. I mean, of course, there is also always economic questions. So it's totally okay if you take up a postdoc for a year because you don't know what you want to do afterwards, but don't immediately go for the first thing that's offered to you, and don't let yourself be put under pressure. That's it.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you very much, Cyriac. We will come back to you for the question and answer time after Stefan. So Stefan, if you can switch on your mic and video, great. Thank you very much. So now that's your turn. We discuss career development outside of academia with all the speakers. So you are different because you are not working outside of academia, you are within this sector. So my first question, like for Cyriac, can you tell us who you are and tell us more about your background, please?
Yes, so first of all, hi Berenice, and hi to all of you. I hope you can hear me fine. So my name is Stéphane Baudron. I am currently a research director at the CNRS, which is the French Center for Scientific Research. And I'm located in a laboratory that is at the University of Strasbourg. So I have something in common with Cyriac, actually, who grew up there. I grew up around Paris. I did my studies there. I also went to an engineering school. And after that engineering school, I did a PhD in chemistry at the University of Nantes and Angers, because there was a move during my PhD. And after that, I went for a 2-year postdoc at UC Berkeley in California. And following that postdoc, I was appointed CNRS researcher already at the University of Strasbourg. And after 15 years, I got promoted to the position I'm in, which is research director. So what I do on a daily basis is, of course, research. So I do research that some may consider fundamental or basic research. So it may not have a direct application, but that's also important that this research exists. I am a chemist. I work mostly on materials and trying to develop materials. And since I got promoted, I also did sort of a move in terms of scientific topic, because I am now working more towards greener aspect of chemistry, which is a recent development for me. And what I do every day is so all the different aspects that are connected to research, meaning coming up with ideas, and that's of course the exciting job, to be creative, which also means try to find funding to develop those ideas, write article with research. Another very important part of the job is even though as a CNRS researcher or research director, you don't have to teach, you are actually working with PhD students and postdocs, and that's a very important part of the job, which is probably maybe the most interesting, is to collaborate with younger researchers and develop the projects together. And of course, there is a part of communicating the research through articles and conferences and so on and so forth.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the question is, because you have been one of the lucky ones to be recruited by CNRS, because I gave the statistics a little bit earlier, so there were very few, happy few among CNRS. So you have been recruited. So basically you went through this recruitment process, and you are also part of some selection committees, not for CNRS, but for universities. this academic recruitment process is not necessarily clear for people, even if you are inside. Can you tell us a little bit more about this process, how it is organized, what it is expected, especially from candidates?
So for CNRS, it's a yearly competitive admission process. So the positions are open at, usually in December, and it's a two-step process. You first apply with a written application that I think you have about a month to send it, and then after there is an oral exam, like an interview in front of a committee. So you have to know that CNRS is divided into 10 disciplinary institutes, and each institute is divided into different divisions that we call sections. So if, for example, you would have an institute for chemistry, and within this institute for chemistry, you would have different divisions depending on the specialties, organic chemistry and organic chemistry and so on. So this is this two-step process. So meaning you have to apply in December, January, then you may be interviewed, and once you have the interview, you may get the job. When you apply at CNRS, it's not just your application. It's important to think of it as a more globally. So what you do is you apply yourself to work in a laboratory. So this is a national exam, a national competitive admission process, but you have to find a laboratory where you would like to work and sort of propose a project, a proposal that you would like to develop within that work. And this is sort of this triangle, like you as a candidate, the project and the laboratory that is important to think about. And it means that you sort of need to think about it ahead before December when the job's open. So try to see where you would like to work and maybe contact those laboratories and try to develop the projects that you would like to develop. In France, there are also, of course, the research, the associate professor position, which are maître de conférence. And so those are not on a national level. Let's say each university is doing its own recruitment, but it's also sort of a two-step process in the sense that to be able to apply, you first need to be qualified to apply. So there is a qualification process that is also a yearly process. It's in the fall, that you can find all the information online on the Galaxy website, which is for upper studies online. And this is actually, you would have to describe your experience as a PhD and a postdoc, and also your teaching experience. Once you are qualified, you can apply for those maître de conférence positions, and those are also on this Galaxy website, but they're handled locally by each university. So it's the same thing, written application, and then short lists leading to an interview. There are, of course, other research institutions like CEA, like CEA for atomic energy, INRA, and INSERM, but those are way less familiar because I've never been involved. So my experience with the CNRS is that because I personally went through the recruitment process, and for maître de conférence position is because I've had students applying for maître de conférence positions, and also because I have been myself in evaluating committees. I don't know if that answers your question partly, at least.
Perfect. When we prepared this event, you talked about how candidates can prepare, and especially you were talking about anticipation, networking, and changing topic, and maybe the question postdoc or not postdoc. Can you tell us, or at least tell the attendees what you told me, because I think that's the kind of information they should hear. So if you can say it.
So as I sort of emphasized before, I think try to think ahead, because those applications, they do require a certain degree of preparation in the sense of like where you want to land. So, but I share a lot of opinions with what Tobias and Cyriac were just saying before, because it's like, who are you? What do you want to do? And for example, when you think in terms of if you want to do a postdoc and what would be the topic of your postdoc, it's interesting, as Tobias emphasized, that there is a path of minimal resistance, which is sort of what will be the next follow-up step, which would be the next obvious step if you work in a field and you would do a postdoc in a similar field. But you can also think more globally, like if you sort of have an idea where you would like to work, what kind of skills you would like to acquire, or take the postdoc as an opportunity to acquire other skills that are connected but are not exactly the same to, I guess, just broaden your horizon as well. And of course, you would broaden your horizon scientifically also by immersing yourself in another culture, which would be useful because we all work in international settings. So I think this is kind of interesting to think ahead in terms of your, if you want to do a postdoc and if you want to run for those academic positions, to consider what the postdoc, what it would bring you. It could be something different. It could be something unrelated to what you do. But anyway, as Cyriac said, you would always learn things, and those things, they will always be fruitful to you because you could always take whatever you've learned from an experience and apply it somewhere. So that's what I mean. It's sort of complementary. But you can also think about, take the opportunity during your PhD, because when you do a PhD in France, you have a doctoral training agreement where that has a section what you want to do in terms of your first professional development. So take that opportunity to think, maybe even though it may not be clear, but take it and see what you would like to do, what you would want to do. Take the opportunity as well to go to seminars and conferences and maybe not stay only in the area. And it's easy to say because, of course, when you're in a PhD, you're in a rush to do your work. But if there are seminars that are not directly exactly your field, maybe you will find other areas that are cool and you're thinking, well, actually, it's interesting. It's something I would like to work on. And with my knowledge, I could bring something there. And it's always to keep your mind open and think outside of the box, as Tobias was saying. So you don't have to follow always the next obvious lines. And I think broadening those horizons will help you in the end to sort of apply. And when you apply for jobs, it also shows a sort of a flexibility to adapt to different topics.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Stéphane. So I'm going to ask all the speakers to switch on their cam, and we'll move to the final question answer time. So Lisa, if you're back. You're back. Yes, great.
So I think one of the first questions would be for Cyriac Mathieu, and the question is, he's having also a training in a policy institute like ENA, is argumenting the PhD in getting the positions in the policy institute. Was it like helpful to go to a ministry after the PhD? Or?
Yeah, of course, that's an important question. I mean, I did do an additional master's at ENA, actually, a French and German master's, the Master of European Governments and Administration, that is offered both by ENA and the German counterpart, which is BAKÖV, Bundesakademie für öffentliche Verwaltung, doesn't matter. But I don't think this was the decisive element in my CV that enabled me to enter the Ministry of Economy. Basically, as I said, I have other colleagues who are mathematicians, physicians, etc. And those people didn't do a master's or an additional course in policy affairs or whatever. So the decisive element really was their expertise, the fact that they did a PhD, that they proved, that they showed with the PhD that they were able to work in a scientific fashion, to analyze not just data, but especially scientific publications, so that they had really the capacities to deeply get into a complex topic. And it's more about that, basically. So your PhD is going to be way enough. What's usually asked of you in a ministry, at least in a German ministry, you have to have some additional experience. So if you did a postdoc afterwards, or you have 1 or 2 years of additional professional experience, that's going to be very helpful, but that's going to be more relevant than the fact that you did something in policy affairs or whatever.
We have a question that was more directed to Tobias for nature, but I think it can be answered by everyone. Is the questions of the language, and is it needed to be like a native speaker in the country you are applying for a job, or is there any possibility like in English, for example?
Yeah, I mean, for the Nature Research Group, of course, we publish all our articles, our scientific articles in English. So you need to be fluent in English, but my English is far from perfect. So you don't have to be a native speaker.
Yeah, maybe a quick word from me as well. I mean, to work in a German ministry, obviously you have to be able to speak German, and very good German, because you're going to have to write speeches for parliamentary secretaries or secretaries of state, or even the ministers sometimes. So yeah, your German should be pretty good. But I have non-German native speaker colleagues who work at the ministry that just have a very good level in German. So yeah, but as a native of a European member state, you have the possibility to be an equal to a German national in the ministry.
And the same in academia or in CNRS. So obviously, you don't have to be a French speaker or French native speaker to apply for a job, to get the job. So many nationalities are represented. So, I mean, of course, if you're not French, the communication language would probably end up being English on a daily basis, I would imagine. But I don't think this is a limit in any sort of ways.
In Airbus, maybe I take to say a few words. Sorry, the official language is English, and then you don't need to speak the local language. It's not necessary.
Yeah, so 95% of my communication is really in English. Of course, with your local colleagues, you speak in their mother tongue, so there's no it's not compulsory to do all the communication in English. But let's say that all the technical documentation, all the specifications, all of this is in English, so you don't have to worry about being a native German or French speaker or Spanish speaker for that matter in Airbus.
Thank you. We also have questions regarding also social science, humanities. So, for example, regarding the German Ministry of Economy, is there also people with like a humanity background in the department, and is it more open, or is it more like engineering?
Well, there's going to be a couple of backgrounds from like political sciences. So Sciences Po in France, for instance, people with that kind of background could, I think there are a couple of people like that, but that really depends on the ministry. I mean, some ministries really just hire lawyers and economists, others are much more open-minded. So the Ministry of Environment, and yeah, that really depends on the area of work you are interested in. And then you should just check. I mean, we have a ministry for international cooperation, for instance, and I know that those people are quite interested in people also who did social sciences, especially regarding culture developments in northern African states or things like that. So yeah, in Germany, it really depends on the ministry.
So we also have a question for Tobias, and is it possible to develop a little bit more on your scientific background and how it led to becoming an editor?
Yeah, I mean, my scientific background is condensed matter physics. So I tried to understand the electronic properties of materials. But what I want to say, I mean, the exact scientific background is not that important for the job as an editor. Of course, you need to have given expertise, but Nature and all its sister journals like covered the whole fields of natural science. So it doesn't matter if you're a physicist, chemist, biologist, or study medical science, there will be a job opportunity in the Nature Research Group. And maybe what I can say, you need to have a PhD. Yeah, postdocs are obviously also welcome. But the idea is you have your scientific expertise, which is quite narrow. And then you start as an editor, working on manuscripts, dealing with these topics you did during your PhD or postdoc. But then you very quickly broaden your horizon and deal with manuscripts from other fields.
Thank you. And we have last question. There is other one, but about the spontaneous applications, I think it's more for Airbus and maybe for nature. Is it like something that you encourage to do, like to, or when you are recruiting in this kind of structures, you are only accepting when there is like an offer?
Sorry, the audio was really bad. I didn't hear the question.
Sorry. So, do you recommend to send spontaneous applications? Also, like for people now to their PhD when they are trying to find a job. I think it's more for Airbus and nature because yeah, for the CNRS, I think it's not really possible. But is it something that can be interesting to do for participants?
So it was very difficult to understand you again. There is a lot of echo.
Maybe I can try, or maybe I'm the culprit because my mic was still switched on and I'm in the same room, so I might repeat the question.
I can hear you very well. Yes.
The question was about whether it's worth sending a spontaneous application for PhD students or people who finish their PhD to Airbus and nature. So spontaneous applications.
Okay.
Your advice on that?
Yeah, as I said, the best way is whether through an internship to be connected to specialists first. Otherwise, I think the best way to have a spontaneous connection is to register on the website, because after it can work, but I think there is some the flow is generally managed through this portal. So please use keywords, register completely your CV, and then after provide keywords. Otherwise, if you have the chance to have an internship, it can help as well. Thank you, Cyriac, for the...
Okay, then maybe I can say something about spontaneous applications. So for my job as an editor, I mean, the spontaneous application is not like the best way to do it because there needs to be an open position. So I recommend that what I did is sign up for the newsletter, and then you get like a weekly list of editorial jobs. So I just recommend that you go to Google, type like Springer Nature jobs editorial, and then you can sign up for this newsletter and be informed about potential job offerings which fit your expertise.
Okay, so we are done now with the questions. Everything has been addressed. Thank you very much, Lisa, for summarizing the questions. Maybe before to conclude the session, I would like to ask our speakers maybe one or two, let's say, two final words to help our attendees to find their way and develop their career. Can you give us one or two words to summarize a bit your sayings? So we will start with Christophe. You start?
Yeah, okay. I think it's very important to be passionate about what you want to do in your PhD and later in your life, because otherwise it will be difficult for you to be happy because you spend a lot of time with your job and your subjects, and that's, I think it's essential. And I can only confirm what the others said. Don't let others discourage you about timing and all these kind of things. Once you find out what you want to do and who you are, then just go ahead and do it. And well, don't think too much about the COVID and these things. If there are no positions right now, an opportunity will come in some months. So do what you want to do, go your way, and I think this is the best you can do.
Thank you, Christophe. Pierre, you're the next.
Yes, I would jump on what Christophe said. it is important, job is important because you spend a lot of time nearly on it. But I would just sum it up as do what you want. If you don't succeed today, try again and you will. That's the only thing I would like to say, because there's plenty of things to succeed in life, and it's what you like first.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Pierre. Cyriac, your turn.
Yes, so I can only agree with the part to be passionate about what you're doing. Don't be scared of the feeling that you're getting really deep into a very specialized topic, a really small part of the puzzle. It's okay. You're going to really focus on that for 3 years, but what you're actually learning is also methodology. And that's going to be what you're going to take out of it in case you're not staying in academia and you want to go somewhere else. So don't be scared of that. It's a great opportunity. Go for it. As you can see, there's a way out if you don't want to stay in academia.
Thank you very much, Cyriac.
There's
Tobias?
many way outs.
Yeah. Tobias.
Yes, I mean, I try not to say the same thing than the previous speakers, which already summarized it pretty well. Maybe one thing, don't expect it to be easy. I mean, I agree, take your time, be passionate about what you want to do, but it takes a lot of time figuring out these questions and then also preparing for the interview, like invest time. It's not easy. You did your PhD, it's a great start to have a variety of different jobs, but it doesn't guarantee you a job, this PhD. So invest the time and you will get a job.
Thank you, Tobias. Stefan?
So I will just come back to one answer that I gave before continuing that regarding the languages. I believe at CNRS, like there are no criterion of citizenship, but the interviews are in French, but they can be done under certain conditions in English. So I just wanted to make this answer complete. So I, as a person in academia, I can also say that you have to be passionate about what you do. The advice I would give is keep an open mind. Of course, if you do a PhD, sometimes you may have a feeling that you are specializing in something, which is true, but it doesn't mean that you have to only look at this specific area. And I think you can also, in your career, you may change research topic, you may explore other areas, and it's because sometimes you also keep an open mind to this other field that you may be able to switch. So I would say be passionate, be open-minded, and you know, there, as has been emphasized, every experience is valuable and it will be useful, and you will have learned something out of it that will be beneficial to whatever you plan to do.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Stefan. So we are now going to close the session, but before closing the session, I think that Jeanne, you wanted maybe to add something regarding the creation, the start of your LinkedIn page and Instagram account for France alumni. Do you want to say something on that? No, okay, just for you to know that there is a new page for France alumni on LinkedIn and Instagram. So basically, you should have the links in the chat box. So do not hesitate to join them to get all the information, and regarding events for France alumni, join us. And of course, I can't close the session without thanking everyone. So of course, you attendees for following us during this afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the speakers. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to be with us and to share your experience. I'm pretty sure it has been useful for the attendees. So it was a pleasure to have you on board. So thank you very much for giving your time. And of course, a big thank you to all the partners around this event. We have been organizing since 2014 already, so it's quite a long time. Thank you very much to Jeanne and Marine from Campus France, Valérie from Institut Français, Lisa and Nicolas, who is not on the screen, but I know is here in in the room from the French embassy. So thank you very much. It was really nice to have you. And as we said already, everything will be available after the session, the live session on YouTube, of course, and the presentations of the different speakers for those who want to get them will be available later on. So do not hesitate once again to contact speakers if you want to get more information, because 1 hour was quite short, but the idea was to start for you to develop your network in France and in Germany, because that's also a keyword I would say I'm going to say from the ABG side. Network would be a key element for your career development. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening and let's keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mhm.